twins and teens. Welcome back to another episode of For Adolescents by Adolescents. I am your host, Nadu. Today, we're diving into an essential topic that affects almost everyone: healthy relationships and consent. Relationship, whether with friends, family, or a special someone, play a big role in our lives. But building and maintaining healthy one requires effort and understanding. In this episode, we would explore the importance of healthy communication, setting and respecting boundaries, and understanding what consent really means. We'll also discuss how these ideas connect to preventing gender based violence and creating a safe space or safe spaces for everyone. With me on this important conversation is Nafisa Haima.
Hello, Adam.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we get to serious business, can we get to know you? What do you do?
What do I do? That's a good question. Basically, I'm a lawyer by training. So basically, I went to law school and I graduated in 2016, which is quite a while right now. But basically, I work in the gender justice space, creating interventions and programs for young women like yourself to empower them in a world full of free of gender inequality.
What can we describe as a healthy relationship in your own perspective?
Okay, so for me, I think a healthy relationship is one where there is a level of trust, there is a level of accountability, there is a level of trust, and there is a level of equality. For me, those are really integral pillars and features of a healthy relationship, be it with your friends or be it with a special someone or be it with your parents, basically in a community of people. Those are really integral features that need to be in a healthy relationship.
So now, do you think healthy relationship is important?
Yes, I do. I do. The fact that well, the reason why I like to think that the world is the way it is because we have healthy relationships all around, right? We don't take things as things like respect seriously. You don't take things like accountability seriously. You don't take things like trust seriously. You have grown up adults today that don't think accountability is a critical feature of a working society. But if you don't have accountability, not just for the people around you, but first of all yourself, how do you want to live as a human being in a world or a system with rules and laws and policies and procedures, right? The reason why we have so much corruption today in our society is because people don't think accountability is important. The reason why we have, gender-based violence incidents still prevalent in our systems today is because people don't really think accountability is important or holding people responsible for their actions. You have to be responsible as an individual first, and also then extend that responsibility to the people around you, your community, and your nation at large.
Okay. So how can teenagers, in your own perspective, in your own point of view, how can teenagers recognize the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationship? Because that's what is really going on in our society today.
So I think the first critical thing to understand when you're in an unhealthy relationship is your lack of agency. And when I talk about agency, I think it's the right for you to own your person and control what happens internally and within your own space. That is why boundaries are important. So when you are in a relationship, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with a special someone or whatever relationship that there is, right? You need to be able to say, I feel like as if I am in control of myself and not feel violated in the slightest sense, right? People don't feel comfortable to touch you anywhere they feel like touching you without a level of permission or consent from you. Yeah, so that's important. So if you are in a relationship or a space where it feels like I don't have agency, I can't really control what is happening to me right now, then that's a red flag. I need to check it and understand what is happening within an immediate environment that makes you feel unsafe. Then you need to say, okay, there needs to be a boundary here, or I need to remove myself from the situation.
Yes. So, in our society today, teens don't really think there are signs or that they could watch out for concerning unhealthy relationship. So what do you think? There are many out there who don't really understand that there are really signs to watch out for in an unhealthy relationship. They just jump into a relationship just because they simply want to get into a relationship. So what do you think are the signs with which they should watch out for when they want to go into a relationship?
So the first thing I want to say is that um the media or Hollywood or Nollywood or whatever it is not an accurate, doesn't exactly paint accurate depictions of what relationships and romance should be when it comes to younger people. Right. So, like, for example, consent isn't very popular when it comes to romantic TV shows. Or so you first of all, you see the guy pursuing the lady against all odds. When she says no, she's like, no, 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 I have to continue. I can't give up. And I'm like, there's a better way to have that conversation without you looking like a freak or someone that's literally about to cross boundaries and enter into another person's space, right? So, like, for example, I think on Netflix there's this show called Exo Kitty, and it's a cross between America and I think South Korea. But basically, it's like a teenager who leaves America and goes to a boarding school in South Korea because her boyfriend is there. And she's like, like, first of all, I'm like, who is going to allow a 15 to 16-year-old leave her country to go to another country because her boyfriend is there? I'm like, no, first of all, that doesn't happen. It will not happen, because when we talk about relationships, there's a level of maturity you as an individual you have to possess before you enter such relationships, because it's a big deal. And things can happen in that relationship that you might not be able to control because of the society in which we live in. So your maturity as an individual will first of all determine the kind of person and relationship that you'll be able to maintain at that very critical age. You need to have a level of responsibility. You need to have people that you are accountable to. Even as adults, when we enter into relationships in our 20s and in our 30s, we have people that we are accountable to within our circle, that we can say, oh, I'm in this relationship with this guy or this girl, and I tell things to my friends or my parents or my community about, what happens. I'm not saying you can broadcast your business to everyone, but they're like, oh, what you're doing in a relationship isn't cool, or yes, you should do this in your relationship. But the point is that you're accountable to someone. People can't live in a community without being accountable to people, right? So as a young person, do you have that level of responsibility? Are you accountable to your parents, your teachers, that kind of thing? Do your parents say, no, this is not the right time to get into a relationship? This is the right time? Because it's a whole different ball game. You are literally at that age where you are exploring who you are as an individual. You're trying to get through grades so that you can go to college or go to university so that you can have a great life. Do you really know who you are? Are you really self-aware as to what you want in the future, what you even want now? These are critical questions you need to ask yourself. And if you can't answer those questions and you want a relationship, then maybe you shouldn't be in one. Right. And then going on to the critical, another important area about, okay, I found myself in a relationship. I am in a relationship. And what are the red flags if this is not exactly going as well as planned? The first things first, you don't feel safe. The person doesn't respect your boundaries. When I say don't touch me, the person touches you, you're like, hello, please. Yes, it's true. Or, there is a level of emotional abuse that comes with it. The person says things that demean you and impinge on your esteem and your agency as a person, in the sense that after having like a communication with this person, do I feel more empowered, or do I feel like as if I need to slink off into a cupboard and lock myself inside? Those are like really sensitive but trigger warnings. And the thing is that if you're not really self-aware as an individual in terms of maturity, you might not be able to pick up on those things. So you don't do them because they feel popular. You do them because, is this right for me at this stage in time? And if it doesn't feel right, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
And sometimes these adolescents that do go into relationship with ignorance later come out of those relationships broken and battered. So now there are some out there who are watching you right now and they feel like, oh, she's saying this, she's saying that. What do you have to tell them?
What I want to tell them, that heartbreak is not for the fragile people. I was 25 years old and somebody broke my heart, and I stayed in my room for 3 days without eating. And I don't know how old you are. I'm not sure you want to go through that. Right? But to be honest, good things take time.
Yes.
And relationships, marriage, growing up in that area, I really want young people to be able to enjoy their childhood and their adolescence. And there is really so much you can explore. There are ways to have healthy relationship with guys, and guys, there are ways to have healthy relationship with girls that don't exactly need that a romantic entanglement right there. But then if you do find yourself in those situations, then you need to make sure that, first of all, no one is pressuring any other person to do the right thing. Yeah, because you go into a relationship and one party is pressuring the other and saying, we have to have sex, we have to have this, and no, it's not necessary. And if by any means you find yourself in the situation where you have indulged, please use, contraceptive. That is super important. You don't want to end up with like a teenage pregnancy or any other thing. Honestly, that's on the extreme side. I would always I would always say abstinence until you're old enough to make an informed choice, which is from 18 years and upwards.
Yes.
Anytime before 18 years I'm not a fan of it. So
it is unaccepted. So I've heard people talk about self-respect, self-esteem. What role does it have to play in building a healthy relationship?
Yeah, it's incredibly important in building a healthy relationship because, like it or not, we're a society, and the society doesn't exist in a vacuum, like in an empty space, right? There are things that you call power dynamics. Power dynamics in the sense that I am who I am, and you are who you are. But because of society's rules and expectations, one person is on a higher power dynamic and the other person is on a lower power dynamic. It happens everywhere. No matter who you are, you definitely are subject to a power dynamic situation, right? Even with, my baby, I am in a higher power dynamic than her because I'm an adult. I have financial resources. She's a kid. If I leave her here, she can't cater for herself, right? She's the vulnerable in society. I am more empowered than her at this point in time. So self-respect comes into that conversation around equality, power dynamics, etc. It is important that, respect serves like as a buffer was excessive power usage, in the sense that I respect you as a human being and I accord you a level of dignity. So I am not going to do things that will impinge on your dignity as a person. And that is where respect from one person to the other comes. And it is also important that you respect yourself. And that comes into play when people do things to you that you wouldn't want to be done to yourself, or you wouldn't want to put yourself in a position where that is done to you. So you respect yourself enough to remove yourself from the situation. It doesn't mean you're rejecting the person, but you're like, I don't want to be a part of this. I would not want to, subject myself to this kind of behavior. So I respect myself enough to remove myself from that situation. When you feel like we can, communicate and be friends or be whatever without you doing that to me, then I will come back into the situation. But until then, I respect myself enough to remove myself from whatever this is.
Yeah. And also, there are some adolescents who with ignorance have already like entangled themselves into those positions, which is really reducing from them. So now they that are already in such a situation who are looking for help, if you are in a better position or if you were in their shoes, what do you think they should do?
No, come out of the situation. Yeah, you're not a tree. Come out, say, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Bye bye. See you later. And then, of course, there are also instances in which the other party can become vindictive, can become violent. That's really the question of accountability. Who are you accountable to? You have parents, you have your teachers, you also have your friends.
You have the religious bodies also.
Yes, you have your religious bodies also. So those are, although sometimes religious bodies can be funny, but well, but I know what I'm saying. But most importantly, you have people in your space. And then, of course, civil society organizations are also trying to, create spaces for young people to come and talk about the issues that really are bearing on their heart. You have the Dorothy Injamazi Foundation. You have other organizations, that are really doing incredible work. So, those are different avenues in which you could talk and lean for support.
All right, Nafisa. Our next question goes, how do misunderstanding and assumption harm family relationship?
Family.
Yes, and how can they be avoided?
Wow, okay. Misunderstandings, how do they harm family relationships and how can they be avoided? I think it's just for people to be more open-minded. And I think those misunderstandings obviously come from a place of a lack of communication. So classic saying, people, communicate, say stuff because, they want to be heard and not because, they want to listen to others. I think there's a lot we can do, especially in terms of humility and listening. In African societies, the dynamic between parents and children is like, if I use the slippers to slap you, your head to correct. That's how they treat me. Rubbish and nonsense. Who are you when I'm talking to you? Talk. I'm not encouraging people to be rude or to be disrespectful. That's not what happening here. But
Yes.
it's basically just giving like kids and teenagers space to be able to voice those things that they are seeing, how they feel, and how they're
Yes.
struggling with, and not invalidating those things. Because you need to understand that young people are also in that stage of life where they are discovering things, and they can be confused and be like, okay, I don't really understand what's happening here. And if they can't voice out those concerns at home, they will most likely take it somewhere else where people will not maybe give them the right negative feedback, might not give them the right advice, might give them advice and may put them on the negative tangent, and then parents at home will just be perplexed, like, what's happening? My kids aren't talking to me and they're acting out and etc. But the safe spaces conversations don't exactly also happen in school. They should also happen at home. Do your kids feel like as if coming home and talking to you about this is a safe space for them to vent how they are really feeling? If you want to, mommy, there's one boy in school, I feel like opening one place inside the school, locking me inside, throwing away the kid because the person look for my trouble. Like, can you actually go home and say that I feel like looking this person on the head? And your parents will be like, well, you can't have those conversations. It's forbidden. I don't want to hear about it. It's a sin. No, have those conversations, free flowing conversations where you listen and you're like, I'm not judging you, but these are the values in which we were raised, and we want to also help you to build up that kind of value system. Same thing is like train a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, you're not But is there really a space to be able to have those conversations with your kid that they don't feel like as if they are being judged or ostracized?
That is where effective communications comes in. In the aspect of the parents, some parents they feel like they have what they have to do outside of the family home is much more important than giving their own children listening ears, and this has contributed more to the low self-esteem that some children have, stuff like that. So now let's talk about consent. What is it and why it is important? What are some misconceptions about consent that needs to be addressed?
Consent is simple. Yes or no. Do you want to do this? Yes. Do I want to do this? No. Simple.
Yes.
Right? And consent is an ongoing process and that also depends on the context in which you're talking about. Can I touch you like this? Yes. Okay, I'm starting to feel somehow. Please remove your hand. Don't say that you said yes in the first instance, and so the yes must still be the same yes that happens to the end. No, right? It's either yes or no, and it is an ongoing consent. What are the misconceptions about consent, right? That there are several things you can do to push, make a person give you consent. Consent, you don't manipulate people to give you consent. You don't force people to give you consent. Consent has to be given willingly in order to protect the agency of the person that is giving consent. And it has to be a continuous process. And you yourself that you are collecting the consent, you have to check in, is this okay? Can I continue? Yes, you can continue. Person says no, then back off.
So how can people navigate situations where one party feels pressure to give consent?
Don't give consent and remove yourself from the situation. It's true. Though if you feel pressure to give consent, then you should not be giving consent in the first place. That's a level of, however the person is trying to achieve it, a level of manipulation. So remove yourself from the situation. Well, don't give consent. Remove yourself from the situation, and then please let somebody know that this is happening to you. Why? Because you can never tell how vindictive the other party might want to be toward you. So it's important that people around you know how to also help you keep you safe.
There's a certain time that I was pressured. I would say pressured because I was given a post in school. Not really the higher post, but at least it was a post in school. So this post now covers 2 posts at a time. The post of the assistant, not really a, how will I put it, a prefect in school. So now I was a sanitary prefect, but I was given another post to handle, an office post to handle. So now, for me to say no, I want, the school authorities will feel like I'm bossy, or I don't want to accept it, or I feel like I'm much more bigger than having to collect the post of sanitary prefect or up to that. So now, during that particular time, I felt like um my consent, or what I needed to do, what I loved, should not be trampled on because initially I wanted to be an office prefect, but some things led to the other. I couldn't be the office prefect, so I was given sanitary prefect instead of being an office prefect. Apart from the area of giving consent, your body, giving consent to somebody touching your body, or that, there are different aspects of consent, like you said. So now imagine somebody out there that is watching us that feels that, okay, this is not the area in which I should give my consent to. So what do you have to tell that person?
Okay. A couple of things. And I think in your own case, rather, it's more of a question of responsibility
Yes.
rather than in terms of like consent. But there are certain things like, taking your stuff, right? Or wanting to put in a position to do certain things that you don't exactly go with your values.
Yes.
Right. And that person has a different value set. You have a different value set.
Values.
And this might not go well with your values. Is still say no. Sometimes when you're in high school, the scariest thing might be to stand by yourself. But honestly, take it from me that it's learned by myself a lot of times, and I still had friends. Right? It's not that bad. If not for anything, it equips you for the world outside. Because there are going to be certain situations where you have to learn to stand by yourself. And if you don't learn to do that when you're younger, you're going to have a really, really serious issue learning how to do that when you're grown up. So it's a good skill, staying true to yourself, staying true to your value set, and saying no when it's not working out for what you believe in and the things that you hold dear to you, and taking a step back from that situation.
So how can we confidently set and maintain boundaries? Boundaries in the sense that not really like boundaries, family boundaries, in different aspects of boundaries. How do you think we can set and maintain them?
Okay, so in terms of setting boundaries, I think, like I said, the biggest the biggest burden of responsibility that you have is to yourself. And you can't set boundaries if you don't understand that. You don't know yourself and you don't have a level of self-awareness. Because if you don't know yourself, what exactly are you saying no to? Do you understand? So you need to take a step back and say, in accordance with the values that I hold dear and the things that I like, who am I and what don't I like, and what are the things that I perceive make me feel like as if I'm in a safe space, right? By the time you have that internal dialogue or internal conversation with yourself, then you're then able to say, these are the boundaries and these are the things I like and these are the things I don't like. And when people do things that I don't like, I should be able to tell them in a respectful way that I'm sorry, I don't like this. Can you not do it again? Or stop it? Or this is not what I believe in. So I'm sorry, I need to have to remove myself from this situation. Right. And then you need to be able to be consistent in the things that you believe in and your boundaries. You can't say today I'm orange and tomorrow I'm pink. Right? It doesn't, people won't take you seriously. And then when people don't take you seriously, they feel even more inclined to do whatever it is they want to do. So have your boundaries, know yourself, have your boundaries, communicate what those boundaries are, be consistent in what those boundaries are, and let people know these are the things you stand for. I'm not saying that you should go to a mountain hilltop, take the prefect's microphone and say, my name is so person and these are the things. No. But in terms of your communications and relationship with other people, let them know that this is who you are, this is what you believe in, and this is what you stand for. And then the more people know that this is who you are, what you stand for, the more less interested they will be in trying funny things that don't align with your own personal intuition.
Okay, you're listening to us right now. Wherever you are, you want to start setting your boundaries for yourself. Remember and understand that you and you alone can make yourself happy. You and you alone can set that boundary for yourself with which no one can trespass. So now what would you do? Like, for instance, if your boundaries has been disrespected or your boundaries has been crossed, what will you do?
Well, I would say it depends on the context. If it's, something like you took something that belongs to you and you didn't ask, or you you try to touch me in a way that was, inappropriate, like maybe I don't like people touching me on the shoulder and touch me on the shoulder, those kind of like different, low key ways of, you know, crossing my boundaries. I will, politely tell you and respectfully tell you that I don't like what has been done, and I would appreciate if you don't do it again.
And what if the person continues? Because in
Oh, then you
Nigeria
report.
now.
No, then you report. It's a simple situation. You report. Report to your teacher, report to your parents, report to the next person that has a level of responsibility in in their relationship with you. Right. But if you're talking about instances in which there is a serious issue of sexual harassment, then you don't say stop it, I don't like it. You report immediately. Those are really, really, really extreme cases of people crossing your boundaries. But if it's like I'm with my phone and I don't like people touching my phone, and someone comes, picks up my phone and spread, and I'm like, no, please, I don't like people to. Can you put it back? And then you keep on touching. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to report you if you don't stop this right now, right? But in cases where people who seem to be in a higher power dynamic than you in terms of maybe physical strength or level of authority, and they try to sexually harass you or rape you or sexually assault you, it's not stop, I don't like it, report it immediately. That is the first step. Report it immediately and put yourself in a safe space.
Okay. Moving on to the other aspects of our conversation. What does GBV mean? Others out there don't know the meaning.
GBV means gender-based violence. Yes, that's the full meaning of it.
So is there any other aspects to which they also should get to know about?
Okay, so the other aspect to it, and I think that really important for young people, is the technology facilitated gender-based violence. We're talking about boundaries, and we also know that across, it's even easier for people to crisscross across boundaries on technology because, people online don't exactly have a face and they hide behind technology or a keypad to, commit some very, really, really disgusting things, right? So it's also important to protect yourself in the online space. Right, you have a block button on WhatsApp.
Yes.
Please use it for people that are crossing your boundaries, especially when they are requesting for things like pornographic material. Right, you go online on Twitter. If you put forward an opinion in a respectful fashion, and you feel like I see people are being disrespectful and insulting to you, please report and block them. And besides, there are other organizations that have toolkits that can help you as a young person to be protected. Your two-factor authentication, make sure that your emails and your WhatsApp, your passwords are also on point, that people can't also hack into your own online personas and use them to perpetrate harm to others or do harm to others.
And that is where most young adults and adolescents miss it. They fail to know that they are also in the same space where other vindictive crimes could take place. And they are also vulnerable because, they are coming up. They fail to know that that's what is going on. I know Nigeria now is not really, I wouldn't say Nigeria is a safe place right now. And that goes to the internet too. The internet is wide and broad. And so many nasty things could happen and take place there. So now, what do you think does GBV, what connection do you think GBV have in line with relationships?
So GBV can happen to literally anyone, whether you're a relationship or you're not in relationship. But in the context of relationships where there is a conversation of boundaries and consent, it is also still very prevalent there. So you have two parties, right, who are in a consensual relationship. If you are not careful, right, it depends on the person who you're with, right? There can be, and also because of power dynamics, there can be facilitated cases of GBV, right? It's not just, saying someone is touching you inappropriately or is committing an act of rape or is sexually assaulting you. Even when the person beats you, funny story. When I was like a lot younger, I went to a boy's house. Believe me, I was over 20. So, and it was a church members, so that was, under a level of supervision. And then he had these boxing gloves in his room. And then he took it and started playfully using it to boink my head. And I was like, this is a game. But Yes, I'm not finding it funny. I did not go there. I did not go there, and that was the last. That's the last. I'm like, no, sorry. And you're not taller and bigger than me, and I'm short. Ah, no,
Using it as
thank
a
you.
punching bag.
So no, I said no. I don't like to play with my life.
Mm.
So it happens. It's usually more prevalent, although it still happens to people that are outside relationship. But it's more prevalent in those spaces because there's usually how like the rationale to say, well, we're in a relationship, so she should expect it, or
Yes.
she said yes and so she should expect it. So there is more avenue for possible deniability. That's what role can young people play in thinking? Well, I think the most important role that young people can play in preventing GBV is understanding that they live in a community and they need to understand how to build that community, that safe space community for themselves, and help each other to hold each other accountable. Right? I think that's because you're not exactly the upholders of law and order, you're not 18 yet, so you can't really do that. But you need to also understand what accountability means, what equality means, what responsibility means, what justice means. Because if we are able to imbibe those values as a young adult and as a young person, you'll be a great adult and a great individual who can then contribute immensely to their country. Yeah, in the future. Okay, so how can they, in the aspect of the GBVs, how can they maintain a unique relationship? Like the relationship in question here is that maybe relationship with their families, because these GBVs also take place in the family setting. So now, how do you think they can maintain relationships, like unique relationships? Unique relationship. I'm not exactly very clear on that. But I would say it's really a heartbreaking thing when, GBV happens in families because the family is supposed to be the safest and most vulnerable space for, young adults to be able to grow. But one thing you should understand that even as much as because GBV acts have a way of impinging on the agency of human beings. So proper adults have issues when GBV happens to them. Not to even think about what now looks like when it happens to a young adult or a young adolescent. But I think the most important thing that young adults should understand when JBV happens within the context of their family is that it's not their fault. You couldn't have done anything to prevent that. That you're in a safe space and the person who has been mandated to protect you and have responsibility over you has failed and has violated that trust. The next, I know it's not the most, it's easier said than done, but really the next thing it should be is telling an adult who you consider a safe space and moving yourself out of that situation. Trust me, to someone in your family who has committed an act of giving against you, the only appropriate way to address that issue is distance. That person shouldn't even be near you, shouldn't be near your siblings, shouldn't be near anyone who is vulnerable in that situation. Sometimes safe space can be in the form of your friends. Safe space can be in the form of your teachers at school. Safe space can be in the form of your Sunday school teacher or your imam at the mosque. Safe space can be in the form of CSOs like the Dorothy Germancy Foundation and other foundations that have shelters to take in people, young adults who have been violated in such a form. But you need to find where those spaces are and remove yourself entirely from the situation. That's a lot of responsibility for a young adult, I understand. But that's why we say find someone you can talk to and then Dorothy Germancy Foundation is here to help. So this is a formative space, in adulthood, adolescence is a formative phase. And whatever the adolescent does within that particular stage in time greatly affects his future. So now how can the adolescent we balance our friendship, including choice of friends, with other life priorities? So I think living in community means that you have to interact with other people, and it means that you have to have friends. You can't be alone, and you can't do life alone, right? So it's a healthy part of personal development, right? Even more so than thinking of how fast you can cram a whole textbook. Your academics are important, but really, I think it's obvious that it has shown that what gets people through life is the relationships and how they are able to work well in a community. So it's definitely a high priority. But I think the integral thing here, the important thing here is that you understand several critical principles for having healthy relationships. Respect, equality, justice, communication, responsibility, and I think I mentioned respect. So respect between the two types. But respect is really important.
Yeah.
So have those things at the back of your mind when you are having or pursuing relationships with anyone within your community. And whoever tramples on your consent, you should never, not even an inch, allow that person to come near you. So we have come to the end of today's conversation, and it was very educative, inspiring. Thank you for being on the show.
No.
Okay, we'd love to have you next week. Do you have any final words for our viewers out here? Somebody that might be, oh, I love the glue. Well, in terms of final words, I think the best thing now, what I would say is that I'm 30 plus now, and all I want is to go back to high school and boarding school in particular. So I'm really envious. I'm really envious of young people. I'm serious. So I just want to tell you to enjoy your life, but enjoy your life in the context of several safeguards that are intended to keep you safe and help you to enjoy your adolescence and your teenage life to the maximum. So that's a positive way, of course. Like I said, today's conversation was very educative, inspiring, informative, and has allowed us to explore the importance of healthy relationship and consent in our lives. And it has already, inspired you and me and shown us how to watch out for healthy relationship. And this has linked this very topic to gender-based violence and has helped in many areas in our lives. There are people out there that feel like, oh God, I'm already a victim of gender-based violence, victim of this, I'm a victim of that. I want to tell you that there is hope. Many organizations such as the ENF, the Empower, and others out there are here to help you. And also remember that you can always share your thoughts, experiences, and questions here with us at communications@dnf.org.ng or any of our social media handles. And also, don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us at Adolescent by Adolescent when posting any of your thoughts on adolescent issues. If you want to report any cases of sexual or physical violation, feel free to reach DNF on 081 47553343. I repeat, 081 47553343 or via our platform. See you next time. Until then, bye. Bye.